welcome back to the Mind Talk podcast with myself, Edwin, and we have a new episode for you today. Today's episode, we're focusing on athletics, and my guest is someone who knows athletics really well. She's a current athlete for the Netherlands and has represented the Netherlands in the Olympics, the Worlds, and it's great to have her on as a guest today. Tasa Jiya, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Currently, I'm in Stellenbosch in South Africa for a training
Oh,
camp.
mm.
So I'm enjoying the sun while the Netherlands is covered in ice and snow.
Yeah, it is. This side of the world is it's a bit cold as well. It's not really snowing here, but I know how it is in Europe right now, and you're lucky right now. I wish I was there.
Very lucky.
But yeah, no, thank you for coming on to the podcast. Yeah, so the first question to you is literally, what was your early inspiration when it came to athletics?
Well, actually, I wasn't really into track when I started.
Yeah,
My gym teacher told me that when she saw me running, that I should try and go to a local track club and see if I'd like running there. But I just had my first international competition when I was 15. I went to the European Youth Olympic Games and I won gold there, which was mind blowing to me
yeah,
because I wasn't really into track and I
yeah.
didn't know the big stars. I didn't know the big names. So actually, after my comeback, so after my pregnancy, that was when I was more into track and when I looked up to other women who are big in track, like Alison Felix. She is still a big inspiration to me, but that came later in my journey.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so I was going to touch on it later on, but we can kind of go into it now in terms of like your pregnancy. How old were you at the time when you got pregnant?
I was 20 at the time
Yeah,
and 21 when I became a mother, so
yeah,
quite young
yeah,
for nowadays.
yeah. And you said you kind of like really your inspiration came afterwards. What was it that
Yeah,
gave you that inspiration? What was it that made it click for you?
I think that before everything just came too easily for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
I mean, my first international competitions, but also when I was 18, I already went to the Olympics with the relay team
yeah,
of the Netherlands,
yeah,
and I never had to work really hard. So I
yeah,
think the moment when everyone said that my track career was over and
yeah,
that I was done,
yeah.
that was the moment that I felt that I didn't want to be done. And I really felt like a fire inside
Hmm.
that I still wanted to continue.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the moment that it clicked for me. Like, I want this and I want to work hard for it.
Okay, cool. Brilliant. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're kind of gonna go through a journey. So a journey of
Hmm.
how it started to where you are today and the obstacles and the stuff that may have happened along the way. So talk to me about your early experience. When did you start track? How was it at that age when you started? Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. I was about, I think, 13 or 14 when I
Okay.
started track.
Yeah.
I did ballet at the time, classical ballet, and I actually wanted to be really good at that.
Okay.
But I grew too tall.
Okay.
I'm 184, and usually girls are like, I think 160 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I had to give up that dream.
Yeah.
So then I started track, and I did like it, but more as a hobby, nothing too serious. So then I went to the Youth Olympic Games when I was
Okay.
15,
Yeah.
and I won my first medal there. So then I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe this can become something. But then the years after, I still, as I said, I didn't work really hard. I
Yeah.
just went with the flow
Yeah.
and I worked when I wanted to, but
Yeah.
not always when I had to.
Okay.
So there were also a lot of injuries.
Okay.
And then at age 18, I went to the Rio Olympics.
Okay.
And this was the point where everyone said, okay, well, now she's coming and you made it to the Olympics. That's amazing. How do you feel? How was it? But I felt quite empty on the inside
Yeah.
because I was still very young. I was away a lot from my family. I didn't feel at home in the track
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And it was overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time. So all the expectations were very overwhelming, but then like the reward of the Olympics, it was quite underwhelming. So after the Olympics, I quit. I was done with it. I was really looking forward to a more free life.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on and I studied law and philosophy.
Okay.
And I went to parties and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a year, I was like, well, is this all there is to the student life? It was
Mm-hmm.
not fulfilling in any way. So I then wanted to combine my studies with track. And this actually went quite well because
Okay.
I had the physical parts where I could like really challenge myself with track.
Okay.
And at the same time, I had the intellectual challenge at my studies.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on my way to qualify for the Europeans in 2018, but then I found out I was pregnant. So yeah, that was the part where things changed all of a sudden, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my little baby girl at the end of 2018. And then I was like, okay, so things won't be as easy as they were before. I don't only have myself to think about, but I still want things. It's not now that I'm a mom that's all I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the point that I really became serious about what my goals were in life. I wanted to complete my studies. I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I also wanted to be a good mom to my baby
Yeah.
girl. So then followed 3 quite hard years where I
Mm-hmm.
was combining being a young mom,
Yeah.
studying law,
Yeah.
and becoming fit again. And at the same time, also growing up because I was still 21 and there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot to learn in life.
Yeah.
Then we had the Corona time
Mm-hmm.
where we had a lockdown and things were quite hard then. So I actually thought, well, maybe it's just not for me. It's too hard. I was back at the level before the pregnancy, but I didn't push through. I couldn't reach a new level. So I said to myself, I'm going to try one more time, give it my all. I changed training groups.
Okay.
This was in 2022. And then things started to fall in place. In 2022, I went to the 23. I
Mm-hmm.
went to the Worlds
Yeah.
in Budapest.
Yeah.
And that was actually the moment that I thought, yes, you made it. You did it. I have my diploma. My girl was with me in Budapest and it went very well at
Yeah.
the Worlds. So yeah, that's last year. And then this year, the Olympics. And that's where we are now.
So much to unpack. Quite a journey, I would say, that you've been through. So what we'll do, we'll go back to the point when you found out when you were pregnant.
Mhm.
How did you feel at the time? How, and also how was it like in terms of your community, the people around you? How did they react at the time when you found out you were pregnant?
Yeah, to me, it was a big shock. It came totally unexpected, of course, at that age, but also, and I think maybe more women will recognize this, but it can be quite hard as a woman to find the right way to balance like your hormonal needs as a
Mm-hmm.
woman,
Yeah.
but also the risk of getting pregnant. And for me, I always had a hard time with hormones. So it was just a shock to know that I was pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
but also the choice that follows because I had to decide, am I going to do this or not? And I'm very happy that we have the freedom to decide,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still hard.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I couldn't really speak about it to anyone, actually, only to my partner. And he told me that whatever I would choose, he would support me. But for him, a child would be very welcome.
Mm.
And, he had a stable job. We had a roof over our head. Our relationship was quite stable also, although we weren't together for a long time. So I felt that if I wanted to, I would be in the right place to do it. So my biggest concern actually was track. So at the beginning, I didn't talk about it. And then when I started talking about it, I got very mixed reactions. So the
Okay.
people that were very close to me, they were concerned and they were like, well, you are so young. You have 2 more years to go with your law studies.
Yeah.
You are on your way to qualify for the Europeans. This is not a good time for you.
Yeah.
But I also had friends who said that if someone could do it, it would be me. And they were like, you did so many amazing and hard things already. We are sure that you have it in you, but it won't be easy. And I know one conversation with my coach at the time, Marita, she told me that I never took the easy path.
Mm-hmm.
And She knew that also challenge made me feel alive. So that if in my heart I would feel that I wanted to do it, she said, just do it and see what happens. So after a long time, I decided that I wanted to do it. Once I made the decision, most people supported me. But from the track world, there were also a lot of people who said, well, what a pity. You were so talented. And now you're throwing everything away. And there were not a lot of, how do you say it? There were not a lot of other women who did this. Like now it's becoming more common. But at the time, in sprints, I think there were none who did what I wanted to do. So it felt scary,
Yeah, I can
honestly.
imagine.
Yeah, yeah. But after I made the decision, I never looked back. And I felt so strong and I felt very happy to become a mom. And I also didn't think too much about what could go wrong. So I just went for it, maybe a bit naive, but I think it helped me.
I don't think it's naive at all. But when you did decide to go for it, what are some of the major sacrifices that you had to make at the time? Because now it's not just you that you've got to worry about. You've got to worry about your daughter as well. What are the major things that you had to do to navigate training and life together?
Yeah, so I actually think it's quite funny because a lot of people think that I had to sacrifice a lot. People tell me often, well, don't you find it sad that you had to sacrifice your youth, for example? But I actually think that the life a mother lives is quite the same in some ways as an athlete because you have no time to party, for example. Your social circle gets a lot smaller.
Yeah,
I had to be in bed very early for
yeah,
training, but also for my daughter. So the things I had to prioritize were actually quite the same things I had to prioritize for my track career. And also because of the Corona time, there were no social activities. So I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice a lot because,
yeah.
yeah, I was living the same life as I were with the exception that my days were just much fuller.
Mm,
So in the beginning, it was like waking up, feed the baby, train, feed the baby, sleep, and that just over and over and over.
mhm.
But I sometimes feel that that kind of saved me because the structure I had to maintain was not only for me, but it was
Mhm.
for someone else, and that made
Yeah,
it for me easier to be as disciplined.
I have heard it from other athletes across multiple sport that it actually does help with structuring because you've not just got yourself to worry about, you've got a little one to worry
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
When it comes to that, let's moving on to training. What were the things that you
Mhm.
were looking for in training? Let's say from your coach at the time. Was there anything different that you were looking for then that you may have been looking for differently at before you had your child?
After becoming a mom, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because before it was just very much about performance only.
Hmm.
I mean, I still have a really good relationship with my coach from then. And we had a lot of talks about different aspects of life. But when it
Hmm.
came to training, it was
Yeah,
pretty much performance focused. But now we were more talking about how can I be a person that has the mental space to do all of the things I need to do?
hmm,
Because normally you can say to an athlete, you got to focus, you
yeah,
got to do this, this, and this, and make
yeah,
sure you're good at training. But
yeah,
now there were things outside of my control. I mean, I had a baby that woke up 4 times a night,
yeah.
and of course, my coach could say, you have to be there tomorrow morning sharp at 9 o'clock. But if
Hmm.
I did not sleep that night, I could not perform, and it was outside my control. So
100%.
we're talking more about performance, but like from a flexibility standpoint. So some things need to be done, but we need to be flexible with our approach. So, for example, I could call her, or not call her, I could text her like at 4 a.m. and say,
Yeah,
hey, my baby woke up. I cannot make it at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I can
yeah,
do 11.
yeah.
And then she would be there at 11. So it asked a lot of flexibility, but also trust from her that she saw I was working hard and that the flexibility was not because of laziness or
Yeah.
because of me not being disciplined, but
Hmm.
because my life had changed.
Yeah. 100%. Sticking with coaches. How was
Mhm.
it like for you in terms of having a relationship with coaches from when you were a young athlete to where you are now? What did you look for the same thing to be given back to you by your coach, or do you look for something different now in your journey?
Definitely, yeah, definitely something different. I think what I needed as an 18-year-old and also what I kind of missed back then and what maybe partly caused me to quit track
Yeah.
was a like a long-term vision
Mm-hmm.
where the coach would say, listen, you're talented, you're young,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but you won't be running a world record next year. So you need to build a certain structure in your life. You need to build up your training. And then
Mm-hmm.
step by step by step, you will come to the level where there is a possibility for you to achieve greatness. And I see a lot of young, talented athletes hearing from people around them, like, you're so talented, you can be the new Usain Bolt, you can be the new this, the new that. And then they fail because
Mm.
you are not just great. You need to build up to it. And
Yeah.
the disappointment and the frustration that
Mm-hmm.
comes with their perceived failing can
Yeah.
cause them to either quit or get injured or whatever. While if you have a trainer that tells you, listen, you're now 18, we want you to be great at 24 or
Mm.
25.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do each year for you to come to that level. I think I probably would not have quit. So that's what I needed then. Just
Yeah.
someone who would tell me, this is what we are going to work on this year. And it can be as small as nutrition, for
Yeah.
example. We're
Yeah.
just going to build a good schedule around
Yeah.
nutrition. Now we're going to build something about your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to work on nerves around competition and just build, 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 build. And now that I'm older and that I have learned a lot of that by myself,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking for someone who sees me as as an equal
Okay.
person and will talk with me on an equal level. Like, you know yourself better now. What do you think that
Yeah.
you need? And what are you
Yeah.
missing? And then the missing part he or she can do for me. So I think that's the difference.
You've touched on points which I actually wanted to raise, which are probably very essential for athlete. And the first point that you touched on was nutrition. What is it that you're doing now compared to before that you think has benefited you in your current journey?
In my what journey?
So in your journey, when it comes to nutrition, what is it that you're
Yeah.
doing differently now compared to what you may have done before?
Well, I think two two things are very important. One, we all know that for track a few things are important, like your protein is very important. The balance between protein and carbs is important. Hydration is important. So we all know the important points. But what you got to do is you have to build step by step a diet that you can sustain. Because what I did when I was younger, either I ate like shit,
Mm,
just like McDonald's and
yeah,
KFC and
yeah,
donuts and stuff like that. It was
yeah,
horrible. And then around competition, I started to be very strict to myself and I
yeah,
yo-yoed around the whole year.
yeah,
When you're young, I mean, it's fine. Your body can take it, but it
mm,
will build up.
yeah,
There will come a time that the nutrition will work against you.
100%.
But what I see then is that athletes, when they become more serious, all of a sudden they are going to try something very different, be very strict, try to do everything perfectly. And then when it's off season, they go the other way and they yo-yo again. They binge
Yeah,
eat and they eat like horrible. So what I do, I'm not very strict with dieting.
mm-hmm,
I took After I became a mom, I had very specific nutritional needs, and
yeah,
I just built my nutrition and my diet up. So I started with making sure I had enough protein from sources that I liked.
mm-hmm,
Then I added my carbs, and I was just looking
yeah,
at what kind of carbs feel good to me. And then I added another thing and another thing. And when I had, how do you say it, a craving,
mm-hmm,
I ate what my craving told me to eat
yeah,
because apparently I was missing something.
mm-hmm,
And then I got thinking again, okay, I have this craving. What could it be? And I just Googled the kind of craving and I saw, okay, maybe I'm missing something. So I added that.
mm-hmm,
And so I built it year after year after year. And I think now I have a diet that I can sustain for like forever. So even when I quit track, I wouldn't mind eating like this for the rest of my life because it's not
Yeah.
hard on me.
Yeah.
It feels good on my body and it's healthy.
I think that is so important because you do see in a lot of sports where there's some people become more professional nowadays, but there are some athletes in the past where you've seen that they yo-yo between a, a certain diet while they're in training and then a different diet when it's off season. And you do tend to find towards the end of their career that they lose the passion for whatever sport they're doing because they're thinking about, or it means I have to change this, I have to change that. Where if you have more of a balanced approach, you wouldn't be thinking about that. And you see it a lot.
Yeah.
You see
Yeah,
it a lot.
that's true. And you also see a lot of athletes quit, and then within 2, 3 years, they are really fat.
Yeah, yeah. No, you do. And it is all linked to that. It's all linked to that.
Yeah.
Another point you did raise before I asked you that question was around with your coaches, in terms of how you deal with certain moments like handling pressure and stuff like that. What are the main things that you do to help yourself handle pressure in the event of if you're on a race day? What are the main things that you actually do?
Yeah. So first of all, it is of course accepting the fact that there will be nerves. There's nothing that you can do about it. And it just means that you're passionate. It means you worked hard. And it also can give you that little bit of sharpness that you need.
Hmm.
So I don't try to like get away from the nerves. The second thing I always think about is that no one in this entire world is thinking about me as much as I am.
Mm.
That goes for everyone. I think it's called like the spotlight effect.
Okay.
Everyone is so busy with themselves
Hmm.
that they don't have time to think about you. So
Hmm.
I know all my failures. I know all my bad races. I know every mistake I ever made. But
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that no one can name them as good
Hmm.
as I am. Probably they
Yeah.
can't even name one big mistake. So I always go in with the idea that even if I F up, people won't remember. And the third thing I do is really focusing on the things I can control. So I cannot control if I win because it's depending on what others are going to do. I cannot control the time I'm going to run, but there are always one or two things that I focus on that I can control.
Hmm.
For example, the way I go out of the blocks,
Yeah.
the way I attack the band. And I just, every time I feel scared or I feel pressure, I go back to those focus points and really try to execute only those things very well. And then I see what it brings me.
Which is fantastic. One thing that I used to kind of do, and one thing that some athletes in the past have mentioned that they do it is visualizing. Do you use any visualizing techniques before your race?
It depends. Usually I do it before a race, but I have to be careful that it doesn't make me anxious because when I visualize right before a race, I also feel like the atmosphere and I feel the tension. And sometimes it can make me too anxious. But I do visualize like in training a lot,
Hmm. Yeah.
especially with things like starting blocks that is very hard on the body and I cannot
Hmm.
do 30 block starts in one
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
So instead, before I start, I visualize maybe 30, 40 times what I'm going to do, and then I go into the blocks.
Hmm.
I also sometimes do visualize races, but not the most important ones
Okay.
because there the pressure will be too much.
It's interesting you say that because when I think about myself and I think to when I was competing, even though it was never at your level, that is probably one of the issues. Visualizing did make me feel more nervous on race days. It made me think too much
Yeah,
about what I had to do.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess for some people it works, but for some it doesn't work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so too. And I know that visualization techniques have people praise them a lot, and I really believe in them. But you have to find the proper time for you when it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. 100%. So, being part of the Netherlands team requires you to be part of a team, but you also, some people have that within their training group. How is it like for you in terms of your training group? Is there a number of people in your group? Is there a number of people when you're competing for the Netherlands that you hang with? How is it like to you? Because I know there's some athletes that like to be by themselves. They don't really like to mix. How is your How's your approach?
Well, we have a very big group at Papendal. Papendal is like the national training center in the Netherlands. And we train together during the winter time, especially, but also now, actually, instead of balls, we train together with the short and long sprint. So up to 400 meters and also the hurdles. So I think we have a group of about maybe 30, 40 athletes. I don't know, a pretty big group. But within that group, I also have like the short sprint girls, like really my event and my girls, so to say. And these girls are also my friends. We go to competition together. We fly around the world together. We share rooms. So I would consider them one of my best friends. However, I am very introverted, so I really need to recharge after social contact. Which means that I really like to dine with other athletes and I really like to talk to them during like playing games or something like that. But most of the time I spend alone with a book or whatever, just being with my own thoughts.
Yeah.
And luckily, the girls that I train with, they know me and they know when I'm up for social contact and when I need some time of my own.
Yeah.
But one of the things I really enjoy about camps is that you mix a bit more with the others in the group and you really have time to socialize outside of training. So we go out for lunch together, we playing games, we go out in the country. And I really like that because those are the people that I spend almost most of my time with. And it is nice if you like them.
100%.
So yeah. And also of course, we are a relay team. So we also really have to compete together and make sure that everyone is at their best together. And I think it helps also there when you like each other.
Yeah. 100%. How is it like being part of the relay team? Like obviously your team is well known for one particular athlete. Yeah, how is it like being part of the relay team in that setting? Because it's one thing being part of a relay team when you're competing at club level, stuff like that. But how is it like being in a relay team in the national stage where there's, the nation are looking at you in terms of how you compete?
Yeah. Well, I think I find that there's a lot of support from the Dutch people.
Yeah.
Of course, we have the 4x4 girls with Femke Bol and with Lieke Klaver, and they are like our national pride. But even also with the 4x100 girls, we made it to the finals in the Olympics last year. And I had the feeling that everyone watched in Netherlands, but also they wished us well. They really supported us. They loved watching us. They loved watching our interviews. When I walk down the street, people come up to me and they say, "Oh, we loved watching you girls. You are great." So I feel a lot of support, and even when things don't go so well, people are still very positive. That's something I really like. Makes it so much more entertaining and enjoyable to be in this team. So yeah.
When things don't go so well, so in the team and individually, what are the main things that you do to make sure that next time I don't want to make the same mistakes that I may have made in that race? What do you do?
So particularly for a race, I mean, my distance is very short. It's over in like 10 to 20 seconds. And so I find it very hard to tell myself that I cannot make the same mistakes as I did in a certain race because it goes so fast and so automatic. And if I think about it too much, I get all cramped. That doesn't work. However, I am very particular about my approach. So if I feel like in my last race, I wasn't focused at the start, I will look back. I have like all these kinds of notebooks. So I review every race and I will look back like where was the point that I needed to be focused and I wasn't, or did anything happen, or did I not sleep well? So I really try to review my approach, to review my schedule and preparation and see if I can do anything better there. But I try to leave the races a bit alone because it will make me focus too much on details and I need flow and focus to do.
Yeah. A couple more questions before we close. So how has it been like for you mentally when you've had injuries? How have you dealt with them mentally when you've had those experiences in your career?
Yeah, well, Actually, right now, I'm going to a bit of a tough period because I had an operation of my eye in November, which caused me to miss almost the whole winter preparation.
Okay.
So now we're going into indoors, and I don't feel prepared because
Mm.
I missed a lot. Before, I had the tendency to be a bit destructive, like eating too much to comfort myself or
Yeah.
watching Netflix series the whole night because I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to think about training.
Yeah.
So that obviously did not work. And I found out that sticking to, again, things you can control helps me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I try shifting the focus from training to everything outside of training. And just, I have certain goals that are not performance related, like I
Mm-hmm.
need to sleep 9 hours at night.
Yeah.
Eat 5 times a day, I have to eat my protein.
Yeah.
I have things like read one book a week just to keep my mind off training, go for a walk in nature. So I have a list with like, I think 30, 40 things
Okay.
that help me when times get tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I just ignore all the training parts. I leave that to my coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I talk with them about how I feel. So I have a like an outlet.
Yeah.
But as soon as training is done, I don't think about it anymore. And I go back to my list with things that I know will make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one. And the other thing is also um, you have to focus on progress. And I think people can endure a lot as long as
Mm-hmm.
they feel they are making progress. And when progress in training isn't happening, you have to find other areas in life where you can make
Mm-hmm.
progress.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's now quite easy because I have a child. And
Yeah.
so if training doesn't go well, I have a warm home and a kid that does not care about my times in training. She just wants to cuddle.
Yeah.
So there, every day I feel something is fulfilling me outside of training. But if you don't have that yet, I think
Mm.
it's very important to find it. It can be friends that don't
Yeah.
have anything to do with track. It
Yeah.
can be a hobby. It can be studies. It can be anything. But you need to feel every day that you're making progress in an
Mm-hmm.
area of your life,
Yeah.
and that will pull you through.
This is my last question, and I like to ask most of my guests that come on. So, when you look at yourself, what do you think are your three greatest strengths, and what do you think are the three areas where you think, actually, I think I can do something different?
I think a strength of mine is that um, like I'm very ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very like I've big goals for myself, but I
Mm-hmm.
am patient with
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something I had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like the type A people are very driven.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be very hard for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel sometimes that works against you.
Yeah.
But I feel that I'm patient
Yeah.
and I know what I can do, but I give myself time to grow. Another thing is that I think I'm quite smart. So I like reading books. I like reading articles. I'm a deep thinker,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps me both in my training to be really. I know a lot of stuff about my training and about why I do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And when things don't work, I'm able to find new ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also a strength. And third, I'm also very honest, especially to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I I'm okay with admitting I think I did things wrong. I'm also okay with admitting that maybe a dream I had isn't a dream anymore and I quit. I'm okay with thinking about my weaknesses. So I'm very honest. Things I can do better. Probably, I think that my structure in my life is comes a lot from the outside. So from my daughter at home, from training group I'm training in, and when I'm alone, I struggle with structure. I'm a night owl, so I like to be awake during the night, which is
Mm.
impossible with the way I'm living. So I tend to go to bed too late or stay up too late and be tired during. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a weakness. I think also I can get a bit obsessed with details that don't matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the most important things for an athlete are just, training, sleeping, eating, probably.
Yeah.
And I can get really obsessed with the tiniest numbers when I'm looking at, for example, we're doing 30 flying to measure top speeds.
Yeah.
I always ask all the numbers from my trainers and I go over all the numbers to see where I can improve. And of course, I mean, it can help you, but sometimes
Yeah.
I get lost and that's not very helpful. And the last thing is I struggle a lot with like overwhelm. So things can feel like a lot. And of course, my life is a lot because I mean, I'm doing a lot. But I also feel that small things can really throw me off. And it's something I'm working on right now, reading books about it
Yeah.
and practicing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's.
It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for coming on. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Tasa Jiya. I try to be more active on it, but this is one of the things I struggle with overwhelm. But you can find me there. You can always hit me up with a message or something like that. And yeah, I really enjoyed this talk. Thank you.
Good, brilliant. I enjoyed it too. Thank you for coming on. For anyone that's a existing listener, welcome back. For anyone that's a new listener, welcome aboard. There'll be plenty of episodes coming soon. Until next time, peace.